All right, folks. Yes. This show is brought to you by no other than justinform.com, a social media site that doesn't steal your data, doesn't sell you out. Justinform.com is a social media site created by activists and journalists. Go to justinform.com and tell them that Tim Black sent you. This show is also brought to you by my Wolfpack. Tim Black's Wolfpack is a group of people from all over the country and outside the country. We got some people belonging to the Wolfpack in Australia, Sweden, Japan. It's crazy. Become a member of a group of people that love sharing information. That's what we do. We're here to fight the revolution the information way. So come be a part of it. Go to Tim's Take Live on Patreon or join me on YouTube. We're everywhere you are. And guys, let's do this. All right, guys. All right. Give it up for everybody. I'm checking to make sure all is well. All right. My name is Tim Black. I'm your host tonight for the Tim Black at Night show. And I'm very excited for another edition of Chopping It Up with Tim Black. That's because, guys, I got to tell you, I'm just really beside myself, man. I'm feeling myself, I should say, because I got the best damn guest, man. That's what it is. I keep wondering, like, how I'm going to get three people from a place from, like, across the country or wherever they are. I'm in Maryland, right outside of D.C. How I'm going to find three people to come on this show? And somehow it just keeps working out. And every time, I got to say, guys, it just keeps getting better and better. Tonight, Wolfpack, Tim Black's Wolfpack, Truth Bomb activists on Facebook. I would like to welcome Hardlens Media. All right, Hardlens Media. That's a group of independent news company which covers local news, grassroots organizations, and political issues with the focus on groups, events, individuals that do not have access to media coverage, with the goal of creating a more informed public. I think that right there, that's worth clapping for right there. Because they say they're giving people an opportunity to get the word out who don't usually get covered. So just think about what that means, all right? So look, guys, no further ado, let me introduce to you Hardlens Media. Give it up for them. So on the left, I have my man Daniel. In the middle, we got Kit. And on the right, we have Paul with the beard. Give it up for my guys.
What's up? Hey. It's great to be here.
And thank you guys for making time. How you feeling? What's going on?
I think we're really motivated to be on this show. Honestly, I think what a lot of people need to know is that this is our second time meeting you face to face. We met each other in 2016 during the DNC convention in Philadelphia. And I think looking back at that time era to now, I think we all have come a very long way, a lot of bumps in the road, but we are trying to build something that the corporate media establishment has just basically thrown aside. So there's a lot for us to learn and continue going forward, but we are very humbled to be on your show. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just jump in on that a little more and say, again, thanks for having us on. But yeah, Hardlens is all about, there really isn't any other progressive alternative in the city of Chicago. We've taken the last 2 years to interview over 400 people, many from groups that no one's ever heard of. We've also gotten in touch with many of the politicians within the state, and we've come from a spot, even after we met you, of just relative obscurity to we're relatively well known throughout the state, especially in Chicagoland.
Yeah.
Listen to Daniel, guys. He's saying they're making some noise in Chicago, guys. Hardlens is making noise in Chicago. And look, and also, I know some folks that you've worked with, so you're making noise outside of Chicago too, because I've seen some of your guests have been people. I saw Jimmy Dore went down to do the show with you guys. So yeah, you're getting connections. Hey, Paul, man, how long have you been in this business, Paul?
So I joined these guys shortly after they met you at the DNC convention. So I guess it's sort of a funny story. I ran into them. I had gone to a Jill Stein rally in 2016 and watched the rally. And as soon as it was over, Kit and Daniel ran up on stage with a camera and a microphone and got an interview with Ajamu Baraka like that. And I was like, I want to do what they're doing. And reached out and 2 years later, we're still doing it.
Yeah.
That's how it's done, man. That's why guerrilla marketing, man, guerrilla interviewing and running with a smartphone or running with a Canon or running with whatever type of device you got to try to get the footage, man. That's what's going on. So I'd like to talk to you guys about some stuff that's in the news, man.
Sure.
I've noticed that you guys did a live stream event for Tulsi Gabbard. What concerns you the most about her candidacy? What roadblocks are you guys seeing?
Well, I think that there's two different ways to look at that. I think that there are things that I think like I have questions and issues with her that I'd like answered. But I think that what's a bigger, more important category from Tulsi's point of view is I'm very worried that I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, that she will not be able to get a fair shake because so few people knew her. Something that is in common with Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders was pretty much relegated, and it seems like the media has learned their lesson this time around. So now they have someone that's relatively obscure coming and saying they're going to run for president with, I think when we saw her speak, it was like the best foreign policy speech I've heard in recent decades. But she now has a very big issue that, and I've spoken to a lot of people I know, a lot of people have turned against her because they've already got for her views from her father with being anti-LGBT, which she's changed, but a lot of people are holding that against her still. A lot of people have issue with foreign policy, but when I talk to them, it's generally not what her actual foreign policy is. It's talking points that you hear on the news. But what it really comes down to is she needs to take control of a narrative. And I've seen her say things, especially at her launch, that were like, this is fantastic. But if she can't take back the headline, she can't take back the story, and she can't develop a base, that I see her as dead in the water.
Yeah. Here's the thing with Tulsi Gabbard, because I'm looking at this as another veteran too. Look, I'm upset at how the corporate media is trying to destroy her character, because she did serve the country. She did 2 tours overseas. She is, she has made mistakes. She's acknowledged it. She's apologized for it. But the corporate media keeps on playing the same tune over and over again about her past and her policies and what she did during 2016 by walking away from the DNC establishment and actually supporting Bernie Sanders. In fact, her courage in doing that was a clear political career risk, because you're doing this at a time when the Clintons had full control of the DNC, and the very fact that Tulsi stepped away and said, this is wrong, I'm going to support Bernie Sanders because we're clearly showing a bias here. It tells me a lot about who she is and what she believes in. What she needs to prepare herself for is to continue to combating the corporate media, because there's no way they're going to let up at this point. They're stuck with their tune of saying that she's a Putin puppet, which is not true. They keep on attacking her on her foreign policy and domestic issues, but they're not really going to really what she really stands for. And even when she was on MSNBC was still standing by that fraudulent article that has now been debunked thanks to Glenn Greenwald and everyone else in the independent media circle for calling MSNBC and CNN out for their hypocrisy. So what Tulsi Gabbard needs to do is, one, she has to prepare herself for the clear risk of being slandered by the corporate media. 2, she has to have a strong campaign to also call out the election fraud, because let's face it, if there's going to be election fraud, we saw in 2016 that they were doing out in the open. It's going to probably happen in 2020, and the same thing's going to probably happen to Bernie Sanders as well. So we have to also acknowledge the fact too that Tulsi Gabbard will have to be on the defense, and she's going to have to really lay out her strong domestic policy and foreign policy and build a strong base, like Daniel says. Otherwise, if she can't do that, if she doesn't have a strong team, if her campaign cannot control the narrative, then I hate saying this, she will be dead in the water too. And I don't want to see that happen, because so far she's the most real candidate on the stage as of right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You know what, guys? I have a clip of Tulsi Gabbard. Guys, hang tight real quick. Let me see if I can pull up this clip. Now that we're having this conversation, I'm thinking maybe this will be a good time, because maybe there's some folks who work who didn't have an opportunity to kind of see them do the ambush thing on Tulsi Gabbard in person or on TV. So let me see if I have that. Let's see. Who is this? Is this it?
Is this the clip from Morning Joe?
Yeah, it's the Morning Joe clip. I got so many clips here. 1 second. Let me see which one this is. Oh, I've got it, guys. Now, you won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to hear it. So,
about the pursuit of peace. Do you think Assad is our enemy?
Here we go. Let me rewind it. Here you go, folks. This is Tulsi Gabbard on Morning Joe, as the guys just pointed out. And check it out.
friends.
Do you think Assad is our enemy?
If we're serious about the pursuit of peace.
Do you think Assad is our enemy?
Assad is not the enemy of the United States because Syria does not pose a direct threat to the United States.
What do you say to Democratic voters who watched you go over there, and what do you say to military members who have been deployed repeatedly in Syria, pushing back against Assad?
People who have been deployed to Syria have been there focused on their mission, which has been to defeat ISIS. Our troops have not gone to Syria to wage yet another costly, destructive regime change war. And many troops I hear from express frustration at the fact that our country continues to wage senseless, costly regime change wars, followed by nation-building missions, leading to situations like we see in Afghanistan. So many examples of our troops being deployed, their lives put on the line, without understanding what the clear mission or objective is and how that mission actually serves the security of the American people in the United States.
Which I think a lot of Americans would agree with you there. But again, going back to Assad, Assad is not an enemy. Is he an adversary of the United States?
We have to look to who poses a threat to the United States and the American
I understand that, but there are a lot of people who don't pose a direct military threat to the United States who consider themselves to be adversaries of the United States. Vladimir Putin poses or considers America to be an enemy. We consider Russia to be an adversary. I'm just asking, do you consider Assad to be an adversary of the United States?
When I look at whether it's Syria or Turkey or Russia or China or other countries in the world, I look at what are their interests and are their interests counter to our interests.
So what would you say he is to the United States? If you cannot say that he's an adversary or an enemy, what is Assad to the U.S.? What is the word?
You can describe it however you want to describe it.
I want to know how you describe it.
My point is that whether it is Syria or any of these other countries, we need to look at how their interests are counter to or aligned with ours.
Are Assad's interests aligned with ours?
What are Assad's interests?
Assad seems interested in the slaughter primarily of his own people, in part. I mean, how does that line up? Survival, yeah.
Okay. Did I lose my guys? Okay, we're good. All right, so we're back, guys. I got you back on screen now. So that was the clip from Morning Joe today. And as you saw, guys, what they're trying to do is, you pointed out, they're trying to smear her, and they're trying to back up in the corner. But I got to admit, I was very impressed with how poised she was. She did not get flustered. She was in a room of jackals. She was in a room. She was in a lion's den, so to speak. And she didn't break a sweat, just calm and calculated. I think a lesser candidate, without the gravitas, without the credibility, without the wealth of knowledge that Tulsi Gabbard has, I think they would have embarrassed themselves on national TV. What do you guys think? I
completely agree. The way that she handles that is masterful, and particularly when trying to be backed into the corner of like, well, is Assad a good guy? Do you like Assad? Is Assad a good guy? And it's like, come on. You've set up this dichotomy, or at least the mainstream media or the mainstream press has, where if we go into Syria fighting ISIS, then we're sort of de facto helping Assad. But if we go into Syria and fight Assad, then we're de facto helping ISIS, which we are doing. The CIA has been funding offshoots of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and al-Nusra for years. And it's sort of mind-blowing that they try to make this little maze for Tulsi to be like, how can we get you? How can we make you look like a terrible person for supporting someone we've declared as a dictator, while the United States supports 73% of the world's dictators, like as if that's even something that is a worthy cause for going to war for.
And this is another thing, because it's more of a macro issue I have with how we do foreign policy. Syria, as an example, we only care, and maybe Venezuela in that as well, we only care when things are wrong, when the oil price isn't right. We only care when our dictatorships don't give us the right price on copper. That's when we suddenly care about their human rights violations. It's not before, it's when we have trade issues and businesses aren't getting.
Hold on. That was spot on. He said they only care about the human rights violations when people want to, develop their own currency or move off the petrodollar. Or that's very true. It is very sad, but it's very true. Why don't the rest of the world, why we have so many Americans who don't understand? Like, greed is what motivates the United States.
I just want to say it's a very clear answer. They watch corporate media.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, this is a neoliberal system that has been created because we have money in politics. So long as we have money in politics controlling our democracy, our leaders will be bought and sold. So here's something that Democratic voters and Republican voters need to realize, that the establishment Democrats and the establishment Republicans are not rivals. They're friends with each other. They know the same people on Wall Street. They know the same people in the banks. They know the same corporations. They know they get the same funding from the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex. And so what we have here is something that was created, I think, by the Reagan administration, carried on through the George Bush Senior administration, then through Bill Clinton, then George Bush Jr., Obama, and now Trump. And so everyone's screaming how Trump is a threat. Trump's a threat. Trump did not create this system. Now, Trump is a horrible human being and has said and done a lot of dumb things and terrible things, but he is not the creator of this neoliberal system. He is the symptom of the problem. And what the American people need to realize is that the corporate media is also donating to the political candidates on both sides of the aisle because they like their little apple cart. They like the little system that they created. And so a lot of Americans are kind of stuck in the middle. They haven't been informed about how corrupt the system is. And so this is something that independents, Democrats, and Republican voters, we all need to step up and actually take back our democracy, get money out of politics, and we have to communicate with each other. Now, are we all going to agree? No, that's a crazy world we're living in where all of us agree on everything. There's always going to be discord. There's always going to be like differing opinions. But that's a great thing about living in a republic, in a democracy.
Hey guys, real quick, Kit, how many cameras do you guys have? Because you're looking at a camera that's not the camera that's active on you.
Yeah, the camera's yeah,
we can look over here.
I'd like to just add in very quickly on this that this is a system that self-perpetuates, and I think that it's on two fronts. I think on some point it's not as organized as people think it is. I think it's more of it just happens to look like it is because everyone's trying to make money. So there's only a few things you can do to maximize profits. So it appears everyone is agreeing with each other. But just in a nutshell, the mainstream media makes money from campaigns. So they like campaigns the way they are. That's a lot of where their money is going. At the same time, their subscriptions are going away and they're losing money. So they're going even further. Fox is going further to the right. MSN is going, I'm not really sure where they think they're going, but they think they're going left. And it's not working. All they're doing is they're sacrificing their future potential. No one trusts media anymore. Media has the same approval rating as Congress does. They're sacrificing their souls because they want to make money, and that's what's important to them.
Gotcha. I love it. Now let's pretend for a second that you can make a pitch to Tulsi Gabbard. I know we kind of went over this, but let's pretend that you're a consultant. Each of you are consultants for Tulsi Gabbard. You were just hired. I'll start with you, Daniel. 60 seconds. What do you want to tell her to do? What should be her game plan?
She needs to do more created media. She needs to be able to gain a base. The whole problem that she has right now at this moment is that, like we said before, corporate media is controlling the narrative on who she is. So she needs to find a way to get that back. I think that doing viral marketing, having a group in there that is very good at that would be incredibly helpful to get her message out, to give her control of the narrative of what's happening.
Okay, Paul, what would you say in 60 seconds?
I would say keep hammering home anti-interventionist rhetoric, right? Don't kowtow to the oil profiteers, but start being a little more vocal on topics like the Green New Deal, Medicare4All, living wage, $15 minimum hour.
Don't get buried into the foreign policy stuff, but also show
because that's a hard one. You know, people will continue to try to smear her as a Russian troll or something, but when you start focusing more on domestic issues, people have a much easier time understanding and getting on board with them.
Kit, what would you say? 60 seconds.
I agree with both what Paul and Daniel said. Strong viral marketing, explain all your policies and stick to them and don't back down from them. But more importantly, during the primary, what you need to do is have a strong legal team to call out the election fraud. So should it happen, you know the laws of every single state, county, and city so that your voters and your supporters, and yes, even your rivals, all have the potential chance to vote and not have their votes denied. Because we saw what happened in 2016 with the Bernie Sanders campaign. She has to do the exact opposite. When you see election fraud, you got to have a strong legal team to call it out and call it the hypocrisy of the DNC. Should they do it? Or should they do it? They will do it. So that's what she has to do.
I love it. You guys really need to contact you. Tulsi's camp should contact you guys and talk to you. Now, I have something to say in 60 seconds on it. It's a little different. Everything you guys said, I agree with everything. All great points. Last thing I would say is Tulsi Gabbard needs to embrace the black community. Tulsi Gabbard, there is no candidate talking directly to black issues right now. Forget Cory Booker, forget Kamala Harris, forget Elizabeth Warren. Talk directly to black voters right now. They will champion for you. They will go hard for you if you show that you will have a black agenda. No one else has one. You have an opportunity to wrap yourself in that black agenda, and believe it or not, you will have support. All right, guys, I think that was a great segment we just did.
Right.
Moving on, because I want to hit a couple more things. The other thing was the State of the Union. I've got a great video coming up, guys. I've been working on it all day today. It's where I'm taking all the pieces of the different speeches that were given on that night and kind of critiquing them. So look out for that. But in the interim, State of the Union, what do you guys think? Was it a good State of the Union, or a bad State of the Union, a waste of time? Should people watch it?
Okay, I think people should watch it. Now, of course, a lot of people have said that it's boring, that it was dull. You had Kamala Harris and her small talking points, and then you had Trump with his clear trying to do damage control, but it wasn't really working. And then you had Stacey Abrams giving a story but no policy. And then at the end, thankfully, you had Bernie Sanders talking about policy and the hypocrisy of the Trump administration and the policy that they passed. But I want all your viewers and everyone else who's going to be watching this to take away from the State of the Union is you saw neoliberalism on full display. The Democratic establishment and Republican establishment are friends with each other. You heard, when Trump said that socialism will never come to this country, the Democrats were also applauding that. The Republicans were applauding that. You had them applauding Trump's guests up there just to earn people pulling heartstrings right there. And then on top of that, Nancy Pelosi, whether she was hypothetically, sarcastically applauding or not, what people need to remember is that Trump did endorse her to become Speaker of the House. And even before the 2018 midterm primary, you had Nancy Pelosi screaming how Trump is a threat to democracy and how his administration is going to threaten our freedoms. But what did she do a few days later? She votes in favor for the National Security Powers Act and increased surveillance, giving it to the Trump administration. So I think what we need to remember is that because of the system that we have, we saw neoliberalism there. And what we need to do as voters and constituents, and as well as being independent media outlets, we have to inform people that they have to get actively involved in their democracy, or we're going to continue to be pulled around by having the Democratic establishment and Republican establishment playing this game where one side's bad, one side's the other, but they're not helping us. People are struggling to make ends meet in this country. You got people
Can I disagree slightly here? Oh, yeah, I think the State of the Union is largely just political pageantry. Okay. It doesn't actually represent new legislation or anything that's functionally new. It can inform you as to which direction the government will be going, or at least which direction the president wants the government to be going. But the State of the Union was largely devoid of anything other than posturing, using people as political pawns, and looking for these little moments of who clapped, who didn't, what were people's facial expressions. And it's sort of nonsense and sort of dumb to me. And what's interesting is of all the responses, Bernie's response was the only one that actually was a response. Yeah. All the others were just pre-scripted speeches.
I want to get on that very quickly, and that is that we did a whole live stream. Me and Kit sat down, we watched the entire thing. We have it on our channel. Yeah. And it was a lot of it was just oh, he's still talking. But I gotta say, I'm really disappointed. Stacey Abrams, when it started, I was talking how excited I was. Oh, she almost won for governor. This is her time to really come in and really counterpunch Trump after everything he says, because we were talking before we started talking about how many lives there were and how much hypocrisy was what he was saying. And Bernie did a great job of adding that in. But I was really upset with Stacey because, I think Trump did better than I expected for his base. I think they watch it. They're going to be happy with his response. They're going to be happy with what he had to say. But Stacey's, like Kit said, she told a story. And I'm she didn't counter anything he said. And this goes to what my issue is, I think our issue with the Democrats. You can say that they're better, but if they don't fight, what are they really worth?
Yeah, and the thing is, too, if excluding Bernie Sanders' response, I mean, I'm very critical of Kamala Harris, but at least her 7-minute speech had a little more substance than Stacey Abrams. And that's saying a lot compared to the lie that we see with this neoliberal system that we have. But what the Democrats have to do is they have to explain what they are fighting for. Otherwise, let's say we do get a corporate candidate like Cory Booker or Kamala Harris. there's a good chance that Trump could win a second presidency. When we had Jimmy Dore on our show, he said, I didn't expect Trump to win, but Trump won. It is what it is. And if you have an unpopular candidate like Hillary Clinton, mind you, and I still question her legitimacy of being the Democratic nominee because of the election fraud. But if you're going to have an unpopular candidate go up against another unpopular candidate, well, I mean, who's going to convince voters that they are going to fight for them? And Trump said that he's going to fight for the working class during his 2016 election cycle, and he won. And the thing is, too, another thing we got to take away is that the Democrats got to realize you can scream that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but we don't live in a normal democracy. Our popular vote doesn't count. What is the key factor is the Electoral College. And so long as if you're not going to run a decent campaign in key Electoral College states, well, then you're going to lose. And that's why we have to get rid of the Electoral College, because it's a system that was created for slavery. I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
And the Democrats have a chance to actually say, let's get rid of the Electoral College and actually have a popular vote. But then again, because of this neoliberal system that we have, you have to have those in power that know better than the voter. And then same thing, too, when you look at Democrats, they still have super delegates. So, I mean, they have a system in which their super delegates, quote unquote, know better than the voter, which is not democracy.
Didn't state just sign on to the interstate compact thing? Is it Colorado, maybe?
But only a few states have done it.
And there's one other note, too, just to hit the nail home. The 2016 election cycle was a huge awakening for a lot of us. But what we have to remember is that while the Democrats did commit election fraud and they do have their super delegates, what's really depressing is that during the Republican primary, Donald Trump was more democratically elected than Hillary Clinton. And that's
something. In fact, on our last show, I had a very diverse panel last show. I had a conservative, I had a libertarian, and of course me, a progressive. And then I had someone I would say who's a progressive but a little bit more moderate than me from the Ring of Fire, Farron Cousins. Give it up for Farron. And we pointed that out, that, you know, it's ironic that the Democratic Party has a less democratic process of electing its officials when you compare it to the Republicans. Like, I'm under no delusions, right, that the Republican Party wanted Trump. They didn't want Trump. But the fact that they ended up with Trump tells you a lot about that party and how they, how they hold their election. So the people wanted Trump, and there was nothing that they could do. And of course, they did everything they could to try to fan the flames. They threw everybody at him they had, and even dusted off Mitt Romney and brought him out there. And it wasn't enough to stop Trump's ascension because, as you guys pointed out, Trump was talking about jobs. He was talking about bringing back industry, reversing bad trade deals. Issues that neoliberals don't want to talk about because, by and large, they support it. They were talking about, he was talking about ending wars. Once again, things that neoliberals don't like talking about because why? Yeah. They support it. So, one other thing about the State of the Union, guys, and I don't know how active you are on Twitter. I don't know if they talked about it a lot on Instagram, but there was a feud about Stacey Abrams being that Bernie Sanders speaking after the State of the Union would take away the gusto, the fire, like he was still in the spotlight from Stacey Abrams. I'll go first and I'll just say I don't think that was the case. Bernie Sanders has been doing a post follow-up to the State of the Union for the last 3 years. It had nothing to do with Stacey Abrams. Do you feel that Stacey Abrams' speech fell flat, in your opinion, because of Bernie speaking after her? Or was it because of Kamala speaking before her? Or was it just Stacey Abrams with a canned speech that didn't speak to the issues or really rebut or retort to what Donald Trump said?
So it was absolutely the latter. It was
completely a flat speech. And I think that we say this on the show a lot. We like to say we're going to call it now, so when something happens in the future, you can see that it's strategy and not spontaneous. And so we've said for Bernie a while back that what they're going to do, and if you probably have seen this, but when Cenk Uygur went to the Washington Press Club and he did that fantastic speech on exactly calling out what the press is going to do in the next election, we agree with basically all of it. And we've said it on the show that they're going to come after Sanders for being old and white and male. And what do you see on Twitter? You see them hitting him for being white and male. and therefore he's attacking her, even though he's being consistent with what he's done for 2 other years.
I just wonder how Bernie could have even stolen the spotlight from Stacey Abrams in the first place. He's doing it like on Facebook and online, and it wasn't broadcast anywhere. Think about this. Joe Kennedy did the rebuttal to the State of the Union last year. Does anyone remember anything about what he said? I think the most notable thing about that was everybody learned that he doesn't know how to use chapstick.
Yeah,
like the thing that I remember was that he had that car in the background, which turned out was elevated just for the shot. That's the only thing I remember about it.
And Stacey Abrams' rebuttal was essentially the same thing.
Like,
a canned
I can't remember anything she said. I mean, it's like
it was a nice story.
That story in the beginning is the only thing I remember. About the coat or something about a coat that her father gave to a homeless person, which really had no bearing on the State of the Union. I don't know how that had any effect.
But Bernie stole her thunder.
Right. But the thing is, with Kamala and Stacey, I mean, they didn't offer anything in regards for policy or really calling out the Trump administration and a lot of his policies that he's implemented on the American people. And if you're not going to do that, what makes the Democratic establishment think that they could win the 2020 presidential election cycle? If you do not have a strong progressive candidate that actually has strong policies and actually has something to impress Democratic voters, independent voters, and yes, even Republican voters, then the Democratic Party will lose the next election cycle. And everything that they gained in 2018 could be lost. But there's another thing, too, we got to take away from the State of the Union. The rise of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her ability to be a leader. She
didn't even speak, and she had more substance.
Yeah, she had more strengths and power and is willing to command respect. And look, if the way the media is attacking her, the way the Democratic establishment media is attacking her, or the corporate media is attacking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's quite clear they're scared of her and they don't know what to do with somebody like that, which is why apparently I don't know if the primary challenge is still going to happen or not.
They're calling for it.
Yeah, but they're calling for it.
Remember, Democrats say, don't ever, progressives, don't you dare primary Democrats. Democrats don't primary Democrats, except when we primary you, then it's okay.
And one other thing, and one other thing too, the very fact that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was able to command respect and actually call out the Trump administration and its hypocrisy really says a lot about her future career to build a stronger base to possibly reform the Democratic Party, if that is possible. But the Democrats keep on shooting themselves in the foot because they'd rather lose to Trump than have someone like Bernie Sanders or another FDR candidate, okay? I mean, the reason why FDR's administration was so successful is because he was able to get all Americans to realize that we had to recover from the Great Depression and we have to create a better society for the working class, not struggle to make ends meet, which is what we're in right now. And look, we are due for an economic collapse, and not to mention with the challenge of climate change, as well as our falling reputation internationally, we as a nation have to have a new reformed political system here. Otherwise, we will fall into stagnation and degrade into something else.
And if you want to hear more details, check out Stacey Abrams' speech.
Yeah.
But look, now, there's something that you brought up. I think it was you, Kit, when you said that what they were going to focus on. I think you said Cenk Uygur mentioned this at a
that was Daniel. Yeah.
And you said old white male, particularly the white male part, they're using against Bernie Sanders. And there's something I've noticed about even independent media might want to take a look at. That is, we got to be sure we don't fall into using the talking points of the establishment. Okay, yeah. So you know, it's difficult. I mean, everybody doesn't have a team like Heartland's Media, where you got, obviously you guys have a team, and that's great, but not everybody has the resources. So sometimes we have to use information from CNN or the New York Times or the Washington Post, and we forget that information is tainted. So I've seen where independent media folks sometimes are kind of repeating the same stuff as is the establishment. The same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, with the gay remarks going back, 15 years ago from an organization she worked with that belonged to her father and that she'd already apologized for. And I saw some people in independent media harping on that, not wanting to make that an issue. So I think it's important. I just want to get your opinions, guys. Does independent media have a responsibility not to be sucked into the talking points of the establishment?
I'm not sure they have a responsibility, but I think the channels that take that responsibility are the ones that should be trusted more.
I think there needs to be a lot of healthy skepticism in anything that the mainstream media is saying, particularly when it comes to things like foreign policy. So I always come back to Venezuela. This is a big one. You'll see a lot of independent media, YouTube media speak about Venezuela in terms of, yeah, this coup is a bad idea. It's against international law. I don't know. I guess Maduro's a bad guy or something, and everything about that country is horrible, I guess. I don't really know. And it's like, the more I look into it, the more I think, I'm pretty sure that country's just trying to make this work in earnest and has been under the thumb of the United States for the last 20 years and is being forced into this position. I don't think you can say it's truly a failure of their government, but this is, again, independent media kind of not having access to the actual information or not knowing where to look for it, and then ending up repeating what they hear in the main news.
And this is kind of what I wanted to get on when I said I don't think it's, you like in a sense that, like, I don't think we should just destroy sort of think that channels like that don't follow that shouldn't, because just like you said, they don't have access to everything, and sometimes they only see CNN. They don't know where to look for the real information. That's another big issue. They don't have the time to look for these things.
Yep.
So they just say the news says it. It seems right to me. Let me run it. And so you have right now, if you're a left or progressive station, it's very much developed because of Me Too and all these other movements that you listen to these groups. And one thing that's very big now is anyone that's anti-gay is demonized, or, you know, on the scale of either being demonized or accurately attacked. And sometimes people can't get that right one. So when people hear Tulsi Gabbard was once for conversion therapy, they just kind of go off, and that's the end of the discussion.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, what we have to remember is because corporate media is owned by, most of the media outlets in the country are
90% owned by 6 companies.
Yeah, by 6 companies. So the thing is, the information is tainted. So that means we have to also double our work to really make sure we get the right facts. Because I think going into 2020, what independent media outlets like Hard Lens or Tim Black or Nico House or Jimmy Dore or even RT America, right? Even though that's an entity unto itself, what all these networks have to do that are outside the American corporate media, we have to cite our sources and really call out the hypocrisy of the neoliberal system that we see here. And it's going to be a difficult job because, again, most of the media here in the United States is owned by corporations, and we have to really look at it through a fine-tooth comb. And will people get it right?
Right.
Probably not. I mean, we'll try.
Well, you know what? One of the things I do, guys, not to cut you off.
Support independent media. Sorry,
one of the things that I do is I try to bring on people like you. Okay, so I know, for instance, Abby Martin with Empire Files. Like, she will travel to location to get information. And I know right now, if she can hear us talk about this subject, she'd say, let me talk, let me give you the information.
And she should.
So what I'm saying is, what we should do is just start opening up our platforms more. Bring on subject matter experts. See, one thing about me, guys, is I realize I'm a host. That's what I do. I'm a host. I'm also a comedian. I'm also a speaker. But I'm a host foremost. So I have no problems with saying, here's my expert. This person's been there. They've done that. And I know a little, but this person knows a lot. So I think if we're more humble and just admit that we don't have the information, there's less damage that can be done because we bring in people that have it. That's my piece on it. I just thought about it because, damn it, I'm really pissed off about some of the people kind of giving Tulsi a hard way to go when I just think it's very damaging when the only resource that she really has is independent media. So,
well, I think it's amazing that we're having this discussion amongst independent content creators about how do we elevate the discourse that we have and the accuracy in what we're reporting, and how do we vet our sources, how do we bring on experts. And I watch NBC News run with a piece smearing Tulsi Gabbard with a completely discredited, like, how is it that we have higher journalistic standards than the mainstream press?
Hey, but they did bring in Claire McCaskill to get more diversity of opinion recently.
All right, guys. Look. I don't want to miss. I don't want to miss the opportunity to go to this next. I want to talk about Cory Booker real quick, guys. If you don't mind, let me shift gears. So Cory Booker announced he's running, and it wasn't as much fanfare as Kamala. It was a little bit of attention. He announced it on the first day of the Black History Month, and I think there was a significance that he was kind of reaching for there. What are your thoughts about Cory Booker? Do you think he has a real shot? Some people say he's campaigning for a VP slot. Others say he's in this to win it. What are your thoughts?
He's in this to go as far as he can. If he can get VP, he'll take it. If he can get president, he'll take it. If he can elevate his image and increase the speaking fees he'll get later in life, he'll take it. So I think that Cory Booker has already shown himself to take money from corporations and then do their bidding. And I think that once you've already crossed that line, and to quote Nancy Pelosi, she's the Speaker of the House because she's a great fundraiser. Cory Booker is a rising star because he's also a great fundraiser. And to be a great fundraiser, you have to go to corporations and say, oh, I really care about the things that you say, and I'm going to do them for you. And then you have to have it be done so that they give you more money. So Cory Booker's going to go where he's going to go. I really look at it like he might be going in. If Kamala Harris doesn't work out, he's the plan B. If Kamala Harris does work, he's the VP. If he gets very popular, he goes to be president. He's going to go for what he can go. It's about power. That's what he's going to do.
The thing that's weird about Cory Booker to me is it's obvious to most all of us that all of the former Hillary machine, most of the Democratic apparatus is behind Kamala Harris. And so we're kind of looking at Cory Booker going, whose support does he think he has?
And another thing, too, we got to take away is this is all about building his image up, because a lot of progressives have already called out Cory Booker's hypocrisy. He is the guy who gets money. He is the guy who gets big pharma to support him. He's not going to really support single-payer health care. He's not going to support the idea of, helping out the working class so we can actually have affordable health care. He's the guy who wants to build his profile up to get more money and to possibly gun for VP. I mean, he's in it, but don't be surprised if he quits halfway through or says that, you know what, I'm supporting Kamala Harris just to build his profile up even further. He's plan B in case Kamala Harris fails, or I guess independent media is able to finally successfully convince enough people that Kamala Harris isn't who she says she is,
Wow. Good points, guys. Good points. I think, I did a segment on Cory Booker. I think that Cory Booker, well, first of all, you were right. He took the most money from the pharmaceutical industry, one of the most opened the pockets for pharmaceutical money in the Senate. So that's the first thing about Cory Booker. But he is trying to revamp his image. He very quickly tried to reverse some of that by signing on the 3 bills that were sponsored by Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna's been on the show. One was about lowering the cost of prescription drugs. There was a couple other bills that they don't stand a chance of really passing, given who we have in the Senate. But they are bills that are positive, and progressives will be behind them for the most part, if not the whole part. So I see that with Cory Booker. I saw him making the rounds a little bit in different venues. I think he's just trying to get his weight up. I think he's just trying to clean up his image a little bit, as you stated. I agree with you guys totally on that. And another person who's out now, I think she still has an exploratory committee. She may be due to announce as soon as tomorrow. That's Elizabeth Warren. Now, Elizabeth Warren's back in the news, though, because they found that she signed a document, I think it's grad school, saying that she was Native American.
Yeah.
I don't know what's up with Elizabeth. I'm like, this is getting old, frankly.
Okay.
So what do you guys, anybody got any opinion on Elizabeth Warren?
I think that for Warren, I think that the Native American issue has blown up now more than I think it needed to from the past. So like, her signing that, I heard her talk about it. I believe that she believed what her parents and grandparents told her, as most people would about their heritage. She believed that she was told that she had all this Native blood in her, and that she was Native American. She goes, okay, sure, yeah. And then of course she destroyed all of that. She had just left that alone and not brought up anything past that. But she had to do that challenge with Trump, and that is backfired on her then. And it continues to play out now, because now when they bring up in Harvard that she signed as Native American, it has a completely different meaning because of the context that she's put herself in. And in a lot of ways, Trump beat her completely at a game. And my issue with Warren is, I have issues with her on policy, but my biggest issue is Tulsi is a fighter. Bernie is a fighter. AOC is a fighter. Warren is, okay, when I have the votes and we have to compromise, okay, then I'll put something together.
I'll try to make political hay out of it once we already have a
Wall
win.
Street, I really don't like Wall Street, but that might be because my home had some issues with the banks that happened, so I have personal. That's kind of my issue with Warren. Like, if it was a choice between Kamala, Cory, and Warren. It's a very clear choice that I would pick Warren. But she's kind of in this intermediate round. She's not Cory Booker. She's not Kamala Harris. She's not Tulsi Gabbard. She's not Bernie Sanders. She's kind of in this round.
Lack of excitement. I don't see a group of people really excited and pumped up about Elizabeth Warren. I see people going, Bernie, run. Hell, guys, I got a tweet that's pretty much gone viral where I'm trying to get Nina Turner to run, and it's like 2,000 retweets or something crazy, which is, I don't usually get that many. I mean, gosh, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I don't think I would have got the same response if I'd have been like, Elizabeth Warren, you're running, right? You're running. I don't think I'd have got 2,000 retweets. So that's my thing with Elizabeth Warren. I just don't think people have as much faith in her as I think corporate media thinks we do. I think it's sort of a fugazi.
I think what Daniel was saying is super duper true. And I think it's a lot of the reason why people don't want to get behind her is that Elizabeth Warren is not a fighter. I think back to the Dakota Access Pipeline fight. She came out with a wonderful tweet with full-throated support of the water protectors just a few hours before Obama required an environmental impact survey. She had 6 months to say anything about it, but she waited until the day that she knew that there was going to be a temporary pause to it. Like, she waits until it's basically all settled and tries to make political hay out of things. She's just not a fighter.
First, I agree with everything that Daniel said about her not being a fighter. Paul's right on about the Dakota Access Pipeline. And what we got to remember about the Dakota Access Pipeline is Tulsi Gabbard was there. She stood up for the water protectors. But my problem with Elizabeth Warren is not only do I question her ability to fight, but I question her political integrity. Because when the 2016 primaries were happening, when the election fraud was out there in the open, and people were calling for a strong progressive coalition, people were asking Elizabeth Warren, specifically in her state when the primary was happening, for her to step up and to do the right thing. Well, what did she do? She remained silent. And then after the primaries, people were screaming, "We trusted you, Elizabeth Warren," or during the convention, "We trusted you, we trusted you." And again, she remained silent. And then finally, during the general election, where let's remember this, Wall Street sent a stern letter to the Clinton campaign saying, "Do not pick Elizabeth Warren as your VP, or we will back away." And we already knew that, from later documentation, that Tim Kaine was going to become Clinton's VP. But then Clinton went in front of the president, said, "No one's going to tell me what to do." With Elizabeth Warren right there beside her. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is a chance for her to pull her campaign out of the fire. Elizabeth Warren as VP, but no, that didn't happen.
No such
luck. And no such luck. And so this election that Elizabeth Warren is trying to step into, I don't believe it either, because how authentic is she? But especially with that fake campaign ad that she did, and then that a weird viral marketing where she's drinking a beer and her husband walks in the background. I don't believe her. Now, do I prefer her over Kamala Harris and Cory Booker? The answer is yes. But how much will she fight? How much is she willing to stick her neck out and do the right thing? Tulsi Gabbard did that. She walked away from the DNC. She was second in command right next to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and she walked away. Tulsi Gabbard walked away from the DNC.
So basically what you're saying, Kit, we're not who we say we are what we do.
Yeah, your actions speak louder than words.
I want to add one it's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility. Like, maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to put a percentage on it. I worry greatly that if she does become president and everything that we think is going to happen, she's going to say, "I'm going to do all these things." Then there's a roadblock about this. I can't do these things. And then what'll happen is all the progressives and people that were like, we trusted progressives, maybe they weren't quite progressive, but they went along because they said, "I like the progressives." They're going to say in the future, "Well, why are you progressives trying to do anything? It'll just happen just like it happened with Elizabeth Warren."
Yeah.
So I think that's a big risk. I said, I think she would still right now be maybe my third pick, but I think it's a risk of putting Elizabeth Warren in. She damages the entire progressive movement by being associated with it.
I at the end of the day, really, just to sum it down, I don't believe Elizabeth Warren. And this whole thing was a Native American thing too. She should have. I mean, she probably already did, but she should apologize again to the Native American community.
She walked into a trap that she's not going to walk out of.
Because what we got to remember is that a lot of the Native American nations, they were exterminated thanks to U.S. colonialism and expanding westward. I mean, they were decimated. You're talking about populations and cultures that were exterminated off the face of the earth. And the very fact that, she should have researched her family history just a little bit better before she made all these statements, because now Trump has all the ammunition to talk crap about her like a schoolyard bully. And the thing is, sadly, he's right to call her out on her hypocrisy.
Yeah, you know, it's ironic, and it's also pretty sad to have to say that, you know, she fought to be listed as a Native American. She went toe-to-toe with Trump, and then at the end of the day, she was just a sellout. I hope that she wasn't Native, that she isn't Native, because she sold him out when the time came down to it, you know, when she had to decide to support President Obama or support the Native folks, the indigenous folks, the Dakotas, Lakotas. She chose to be silent, which is pretty much running the course or par for the course for her, as she did with Bernie Sanders when she could have made a difference. She did not make a difference.
It's interesting how she gave about 1 to 3% support for Native Americans, but turns out she's about 1 to 3% Native Americans. I think it works out.
Okay, I got a couple of responses from people on on YouTube. Winkle the Bernie Bro says, "Howdy ho! There's already an establishment prime. They're running someone against her. You're right, I did see that. But Tulsi has very easily, very handily won in her district repeatedly. They did the same thing last cycle against Tulsi Gabbard. They were unsuccessful, and then they pulled all her money away. One last one. Buck Bruley says, "Great show, Tim, as usual. I challenge everyone to add the collection plate. Keep preaching." Oh, thank you, Buck. Give it up for that. That's how we keep the lights on around here, Buck. Thank you. Gosh, guys, it looks like I've hit everything except Medicare for All. I know that in Chicago, this is a big issue in all metropolitan, I should say, areas. Wherever there's people that are struggling, Medicare for All is important. In fact, I think more people will be on board for Medicare for All as people get older. Like, because when you're young, you're kind of insulated. You think, hey, I'm healthy. I'll be healthy forever. But as you get older, your parents get older, your grandparents get sick. Lord behold, maybe you get sick. And then you start realizing that, hey, our healthcare system really sucks ass. It's really bad. Right now, my stepdad, which is the only dad I've ever known, he's been with me. He's been my dad since I was 2. He can't quit his job because if he does, he can't afford his medication. So Medicare for All to me is a no-brainer. I don't see why more people aren't into it. Guys, what do you think about Medicare for All? And if you can, tie in Kamala Harris, who said she supported it for 2 seconds and then backpedaled on it.
I'm going to let them get some of those details, but I want to say that I think it's a very important point you made about older people. And I think that a part of that is, ironically, the success of Medicare and Medicaid. That they have health care, so it's just not that big of an issue for them. They've gotten to that age and they're eligible. Government's supplying their health care, so they're saying, get your government hands off my Medicare now. And that's an issue. I think that if the elderly did not have Medicare or Medicaid, a lot more people would be in favor of Medicare for All.
I think it's incredibly telling that the United States spends roughly double what most other developed countries spend on healthcare and still ranks dead last in terms of coverage. One of the things, the biggest problem we have, and a lot of people already understand this, is that by having a private health insurance system that is deaggregated, it loses its ability to have bargaining power and also has a financial feedback loop with pharmaceutical companies and medical device manufacturers.
Hold on, Paul. We gotta have you say that again one more time. You said we spend the most, but we get the worst. You know, if it was any other thing, like if it was vehicles, getting an automobile, if it was, I don't know, buying a pair of sneakers, if the American people knew that they were paying more for their shoes, but their shoes were the worst shoes, they want some new shoes, or they want a new manufacturer of shoes, or a new way to get shoes, or they throw the people who made those shoes in jail. But it's just ironic that they're not aware of it. So one more time, so that everyone can hear us at home. What is it about our health care? It's ranked what, and what do people get for it?
We spend, when compared to most other industrialized nations, we spend roughly double per capita than any other modern industrialized nation on healthcare, and are ranked dead last in terms of healthcare outcomes.
I would go as far as to say that if a small country with a lot of oil that wasn't giving us a good price, obviously, had the healthcare system we have, we would invade it for humanitarian purposes.
Wow. Yeah. And there's another thing too we got to take away, and this has related to some of the work that myself, Daniel, Paul done. We've covered a lot of stories all across the city of Chicago. One of the things we see is the rise in homelessness, and one of the causes for homelessness, especially here in Chicago, but it's probably nationwide most likely, especially in other major metropolitan cities, is that one bad day with a horrible ailment or an accident, and you can't afford to pay your hospital bills, you lose your job, you lose your home, you lose your family, and then you're out there on the streets.
The only industrialized nation in the world where people go bankrupt because of health bills.
And the thing is, we've seen this all over Chicago. And the people who are homeless, they're not bad people. They're not these monsters that you see in comic books or even in the movies or in television. Right. They're just regular people, and something horrible happened to them. And the system that we have here cannot take care of them. Look, no one wants a handout or just be reliant forever begging the government for money. But they want to make sure that there's a system that's going to take care of them. When you are sick, please help out our people. And the way the American government treats its sick and its people who are desperate is disgusting. And it really says a lot about the system that we have. And this is why people have to get involved, because if you don't get involved, if you don't step up, then guess what? You're next. And the thing is, I don't want anyone to suffer. Look, a few years ago, I got struck with pneumonia. All right. And thankfully I did have a healthcare system insurance to make sure that I was paid off. Right. And everything was fine. But I looked at the bill. If I didn't have that, it was be an extra $3,000 that I'd have to spend. And I just kept them hit me in the back of the head. Wait a minute. There's somebody who's probably dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with right now. And they have nobody to help them, no system. And this person's just like me, trying to make ends meet in this country.
And no one in Canada is dealing with that.
And so when I hear Kamala Harris in front of that CNN town hall, that quote unquote interview town hall that CNN did for her in Iowa, that CNN is not doing for the other candidates, when she says that she supported single payer health care, I thought, okay. But then the next day she backpedaled away. And then I hear a few days later, she's in full support of it. So when I hear somebody like Kamala Harris or Cory Booker say that for single payer health care, I don't believe them. What are you going to do? The people at 350 million Americans are at risk of not having a strong single payer healthcare system to take care of them. The rest of the industrialized world has figured it out. Is the American government really going to tell us that, oh, we just can't do it? They really think that we're that stupid now? I mean, we see it. We have information at our cell phones, at our fingertips right now. We compare our healthcare system to Canada, Europe, Russia, or even China. They figured it out. We can't? Get out of here.
That's why when I hear people talk about how America's the greatest, Trump kind of alluded to that. I think he said no other country comes close to us. I'm always wondering, what's the barometer? What is the measurement? What part of life are we looking at? We know our life expectancy has dipped. There are other countries where life expectancy is much longer than ours. American homeless people, 40% of homeless people have jobs. A lot of people don't know that. They think that homeless people are just like you stated, on drugs, or some are, but almost half of them actually work for a living. They just don't make enough in order to live indoors. Okay, so all these issues, when I hear Trump talk about, we're the greatest, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Maybe because we have Netflix, or I don't know, because we can play video games, we can play Fortnite. I don't really know what makes us the best if our people are dying earlier and people don't live indoors and 21 vets commit suicide every day. I'm really trying to figure that out, what makes us so great.
Now, I want to say that for the people that this is always the inevitable, terrible, easily debunked argument of, but it's going to cost a lot of money. I like to point out that we're talking about homeless, we're talking about Chicago, we're also talking about, we haven't mentioned, is so many mental health clinics have closed down as well. So you're saying it costs too much money. The system where the guy has a job and a family and is productive for the economy and paying taxes, breaks his arm at the job one time, isn't covered for insurance, can't pay his bills when he gets a cast, so he can't pay that off, loses his job because he doesn't have any time off or paid time off or anything. Mm-hmm. So then he's kicked out of his house and homeless. His family's destroyed that he has. They're scattered everywhere.
He's hooked on drugs because he's depressed, because he's lost everything. Keep going.
Yeah, and then the city has to spend $70,000 a year on average because he's homeless. So you've taken a guy who's gone from contributing to society and has a job and everything to costing society $70,000 a year, but that's the really expensive.
Or we pick him up for something stupid like touching a car handle on a vehicle, and we lock him up, and now we put him in the prison industrial complex, and we make money off of him. That's what we do. That's it.
I mean, it's great. I mean, you can spend $5 on average an hour of taxpayer money for the rest of the time he's in prison. At the same time, you're doing slavery. I mean, it works fantastic if you're a corporation.
And let's also remember one thing else too. We have money for the Joint Strike Fighter, advanced airplane that doesn't even work right, can't even fly at night. Daniel has gone into full detail about what's wrong with that Joint Strike Fighter. Annoying. But it's cost trillions of dollars. We have money for that, but somehow we don't have money for student debt forgiveness, infrastructure, combating climate change, or even having single-payer health care, or even college-free education.
Flint doesn't have clean water.
No, and Chicago doesn't have clean water either. Yeah. We got the same problem that Flint, Michigan has.
And it's like, literally, this is the argument that's being had. Well, it's a no-brainer that we spend $1.5 trillion on a plane that can't fly at night, has no dogfighting capability, doesn't work near lightning storms, has an enormous, is very hard to produce in any amount, isn't really as good as the previous planes we have, but we have part of the facility that makes this in every single state, so it's very popular. But if we spent that same money on relieving student debt, what a dumb idea, helping millions of people, expanding the economy. What a waste of money. We spend this on planes that can't work.
Well, look, guys, I think we had a very fruitful conversation, very interesting, very informative. I feel a little bit like we left it on a down note. I'm feeling kind of glum. I'm going to go around the room real quick, guys, and just tell me, starting with you, Paul, what's the solution? What can we do to fight against all this bad shit we just brought up?
I think we're doing it. I think we need to take a page out of France's book and go get some yellow vests. I think it's time for the people to stand together and say, enough is enough. We know what we want. We know you know what we want. All of these policy positions overwhelmingly outperform any other in polls. Right. We just got to get out in the streets and make sure that the government knows this is the direction we are ready to go in.
Kid Cabello.
2 parts. And the first one is key. It's up to us right now, independent media outlets like Heartlands, like Tim Black, like Jimmy Dore, Nico House, and countless others. I wish I could name you all, but it's up to us to build a new force of state to hold those in power accountable. And at the same time, too, we have to inform Democratic voters, independent voters, and Republican voters to step up and get involved in county elections, city elections, state elections, and federal elections so that we can actually have a diverse, robust democracy that can actually do its job, represent the American people, and actually turn this tide of neoliberalism around. Because if we don't, we're still going to be at each other's throats. People are going to still be in abject poverty, and we're going to still be ill-informed. If we don't fight for a better future now, future generations will look at us as cowards, and I don't want that. And so this is where all of us, no matter what your political beliefs or what your background is, we have to step up, because people like the neoliberal establishment, like those who were like Bush or Obama or Clinton or Trump, they don't care about you. It's one big sociopathic megalomaniac club that we're not a part of. Okay, so they built a system that we're not a part of. We have to walk away from it. We have to build a new force of state, and we have to inform the American people what is wrong with our country.
Daniel, anything for you to say?
Yeah. So I always see politics as just another form of war. In many ways, it's about sides clashing to see who has dominance. So in the end, what we need and what we're already doing is make something that's stronger than what they have. We don't really even need it to be stronger to topple what they have because it's so unpopular. Look at the media, 10% approval. They're already, all the time they're talking about fake news. They're already have been for years discrediting online news because it's their competition. Their entire politics, the old guard, is built on television, mainly. Other stuff, mainly television. It's a dying industry. The online space has enabled something new, a new, more powerful thing to emerge, where we can talk to our viewers and listeners right now, real time. You can read things that people have said right now, real time. They can't do that. We have a much more superior system to do these things. It's simply in its infant states. Their model is falling apart while ours is rising up. So what needs to happen is across the board, in news, in politics, and people like AOC running is a perfect example. Everything that they have can be struck down. One thing I say on the show a lot is that really all they are is a paper tiger with a giant wall defending them. All you need to do is break that wall, and they've lost. They really don't have anything past it. They really don't have any support. The support they have is that everyone's already going with them. The second a better option comes, the second people start defecting, we saw this happen in 2016. and it's going to happen again now in these moments when presidents are elected specifically, is when people move away, they kind of realize for a moment, oh, wow, all this is horseshit. And that's what happened with Bernie Sanders. You had the fact that our revolution exists, the fact that AOC was able to win is proof that this entire thing, before Bernie ran, Hillary Clinton was like the most well-known woman in the world. She had all the money in the world. She had all the corporate money. She had the corporations. She had the news. She had more control of the DNC than any person has ever had in American history. And she barely beat this democratic socialist guy that no one had ever heard of.
Basically, she had to cheat.
And she had to cheat to do it. So what I see is, this time around, Bernie Sanders is going to come in. He's going to have all the advantages. He's the most well-known. He's the most popular. He has the infrastructure in place. And it's gotten bigger since he left, not smaller. He has the ability to raise financing. He has a ton of people that are willing to support him the second he comes back out. And now, what used to be Hillary Clinton, and the news would say, we got to go with the tried and true of the most popular people that the people know. Now it's, we need new voices. Because all that they really can do is that. That's their entire power, is getting people to believe and go along with them. So the second that people stop listening is the second they lose.
Absolutely, man. You guys really killed that last question. I got nothing else to say except it's a small club and you ain't in it, or a big club you ain't in it. What Colin say? And I think that what we're doing right now is a major part of it. I think media is the most damaging, most influential, most important element, because through media is how we reach people, how we get them. I think what we believe, what we do with our lives is determined by what we know, and what we know is determined by the information we're given. So that's why we're so important. You guys are important. Heartlands Media, tell people where to go to find out more about your work and to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having us on our show. We're really glad to be here. But for your viewers and subscribers who are watching this, if you want to learn more about Heartlands Media, we have a website, heartlandsmedia.com, HARDLENSMEDIA.com. We're on YouTube. Please subscribe to us, share our content, help build our network up. We really need the help. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreaker. And if they really like what we do, we have a Patreon page. That support is the main heart and backbone to everything that we do. Since we've been doing this for 2 years, we've been covering a lot of stories. And some of the stories that we do cover, I'll admit it, has sometimes broken me and made me cry a little bit, because you're seeing people struggle to make ends meet in this neoliberal city called Chicago. But there is hope. I've seen people win. I've seen people step up and fight for a better future. And they need to be covered. And Heartlands Media is doing the job because, as Daniel said, we are the only real progressive media outlet out there that's really covering these stories. And we've been out there in the field. But we need to build this network up, this station here, so that Chicago has a strong progressive media network, so that when people like you, Tim Black, or Nico House, or Jimmy Dore, or Lee Camp, or anyone else wants to reach out to us, they can say, okay, Chicago has a strong bastion right there. And so what we're asking is, if your viewers and subscribers want to learn more about us, find us, heartlandsmedia.com. We have YouTube, we have Spreaker, we have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and Patreon. We need their help, and we want to fight to build a better future and collaborate so that we can actually do something in 2020.
And so just a little more detail. We have a show that is on, starts at 12 p.m., which would be 1 p.m. Eastern. We're Central time, so it's 12 p.m. Central. Every Saturday we do a great tour show, just basically what you're seeing here. We go over news topics, and we say what we think has happened. We go with what the story's happening. So I think that on top of everything that Kit said, what we're really about, and I think that right now, what we have right now, we're really happy. We got our studio up and running. We've been, for the last month and a half, been producing, finally, the show that we've always wanted to produce. But this is just the start of what we're doing. You read our mission statement at the very beginning. We want diverse voices. One thing that we're planning to do in the future is bring on more voices. So it's just not the three of us talking. It's more people with distinct voices that are different than us. We want to show that. I think that one of the biggest issues in media now is how segmented we are, how I hate the bubbleization of media, because all it means is 10 different groups are getting 10 different news stories. And Facebook, of course, is a horrific actor in that. But Facebook out of the way. We want to bring in more sources, more people, so that we can do more and say more to more people, so that more people hear us. And people that my best feeling is when a Republican sees something that we do and goes, you make a good point. I don't agree with that other stuff, but you make a good point. That's the spark I need. That's the spark of them that small bridge, because if we're all separated, then it's just a classic. I go back to military conquest in politics, divide and conquer, one of the most effective political strategies out there. So for us, the counter to that is unity, especially with people we don't agree with in ideology. Because
when you say you're looking for diverse voices, you mean people that are in Chicago, or can they be people from across the country?
For the start, it would be people in Chicago. Okay. In the future, when we're able to do something, it would definitely be more across the country. But we have one very nice thing is we've done over 400 interviews over the last 2 years with a huge amount of people. We have this giant archive on our YouTube page. So we have a great idea of who we can pick out from that crowd and say, we really like the voice that you bring. We really like the actions that you've done. We really like the success of this industry. We would like you to represent that kind of a thought process. And I think that if we get to a point where, like you said, you had a show, this show before we had a conservative, libertarian, and yourself, that's where that connection happens. Because if it's just a bunch of progressives on this network and a bunch of neoliberals on this network and a bunch, what are we really even doing except talking to ourselves and laughing?
Well, look, guys, I got to leave it there. I want to thank you once again for coming on the show. Shout out to all the people that tuned in tonight, everybody who helped share this around the internet. Go to hardlensmedia.com. Find out more about them. And also on all your social media networks, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You'll find them there, as well as YouTube. YouTube. Go become a subscriber, guys. Thanks again, Daniel, Paul, and Kit. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, good.
You got it. All right, guys. Thank you. Check this out now. You know what today is. It's Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, and that is Freedom Friday. That means you can call up to the show, and you can get your time on the mic. So we're talking tonight. Tomorrow is your time to talk. So call up, become a part of the conversation. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Freedom Friday, right here. I love you guys. Like I always say, don't let nobody take your cornbread, and sprinkle some facts on them. Peace. Tim Black.